guys, how are you? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a movie review. This movie is a horror comedy from the United States, English language, released in the year 2016, directed by Jay Lender and Micah Wright, and this film is called They're Watching. So They're Watching is about this American TV show. It's a home and restoration show where they interview people who have bought these very rundown homes. They come back 6 months later and they see the results of the restoration. So in this particular moment they've gone to Moldova in Europe and they go to this secluded community of Pavlovka. Now on the outskirts of Pavlovka in the woods there is this woman who they deem as crazy because she's bought this absolutely dilapidated place that they believe is impossible to restore, let alone in 6 months. So 6 months later they expect to see a disaster still, but what they see is actually a very livable home. And so they're very surprised by this, and this creates a lot of suspicion from the locals of Pavlovka because they're very superstitious and they believe that there is something that's otherworldly that is happening around this area. So as the days go by, the locals become increasingly aggressive and paranoid, and this is where a terrifying secret's about to be unlocked that has been surrounding this community for a very long time. So what that secret is, something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on They're Watching. I will tell you all straight away, if you're not a fan of found footage horror films, you're not going to like this movie. Now, I hear time and time again, found footage is outstay its welcome. When are they going to stop making found footage films? Well, the answer to those questions is that when you stop watching them. I see a lot of people complain about found footage and how tiresome it is, but yet they go and watch it. So I'm not quite sure exactly what they expect. They're supporting something that they hate. So I will tell you right now, you can stop the review if you don't like found footage, because this movie doesn't really provide anything terribly new, and it's not going to hit you with a lot of creativity, but it is a lot of fun, and that's what I liked about They're Watching the most. I think it's very self-aware. It's basically making fun of itself. It's making fun of the people from the United States. It's basically the perception of foreigners towards Americans is that they're loud, obnoxious, self-centered, and there are a few occasions in this film where the TV crew believe that they're immune to violence because they're Americans, and so it's very exaggerated, which makes it very funny. So it is an offensive kind of perception that people have of the United States, and it's not necessarily a real perception, but it is that sort of idea of the arrogant, the arrogant American tourist, and this movie really plays on that. And there are some moments that are so far over the top that I couldn't help but laugh. So the movie does have a very light-hearted soul, and it allows you to really enjoy it. I thought the comedy and the horror blended in very well because there were some genuinely scary moments in this film, and there's a strong eerie sense of dread and anticipation that something really bad is happening. There's a level of mystery in this movie surrounding this woman, surrounding this house, and surrounding this area of Pavlovka that is very intriguing, and it actually feels like a mystery within a horror comedy. So there are a few elements that really work, and I thought the directors juggled it very, very well. Now the script was fairly good, well done. There were some moments that really work, there's some moments that don't quite work, but majority of it really works. I thought there was some deadpan humour, there was some slapstick humour, so there is in-your-face humour and some very subtle humour. So it does intertwine a lot of sort of subgenres within a lot of subgenres within the comedy genre that will appeal to a lot of fans of, very obvious humour and not so obvious humour. So it did take a lot of skill from these directors to juggle this, but I thought it did it very well. There was some stereotypical, Europeans. These people are very superstitious. A lot of these people in this part of the world still firmly believe in vampires. They believe in otherworldly entities, and it's kind of the clash of cultures. You've got these Americans who are laughing at them for being crazy, but then you've got these locals who are laughing at them for being crazy. So it's the clash of two worlds and the fight between these two cultures that I thought was another interesting element that the film had. Now it's also very violent. I was quite stunned by how nasty this film is, but it doesn't contradict the mood that it has. Now it's all done, as I said, over the top, but it is gory and it was actually quite bloody as well. But the violence I wouldn't say is brutal. I wouldn't say is necessarily nasty, but it's a little bit more hardcore than I was anticipating. But as I said, it does still carry that light mood, and I thought the mood was fairly consistent from start to finish. So the ending was balls to the wall crazy. I really liked the way it finished. So overall, for a found footage horror comedy, I think it juggled the two genres very well and it intertwined it, and it doesn't really get bogged down in comedy and it doesn't really get bogged down in horror. It just blends it very well. So that's something I appreciate even more. So the overall setting of this film, actually it wasn't set in Moldova, it was actually shot in Romania, which is the neighbour of Moldova. But as I said, this area of the world do have a lot of customs and they have a lot of beliefs that are very different from our beliefs. So I thought that was a very interesting element as well, in that these locals believe that something otherworldly is going on, but you don't initially believe that, but you don't know if the locals are onto something or if it's just their paranoia and their belief system that is clashing with another belief system. So I thought that the cinematography was very good. It captured a very rustic sort of environment, and the way that these people live is, as I said, very different. So the setting in itself was very interesting. But unfortunately for me, the problem with this film is the fact that I thought the pacing of the movie was very inconsistent, and this is where it kind of contradicts the light-hearted fun that the film wants, because there are a few elements that are very serious, and I thought they were very unnecessary, and it kind of develops characters that didn't need to be developed, because these characters are very caricatured. You know, they're not necessarily realistic people, and the movie didn't really need realistic characters, because the overall situation is very unrealistic. So when you've got these side plots of, you know, the history of these guys that you don't really care about, you feel that it's bogged down, you feel that it's distracting itself, and that it needs a little bit of depth that doesn't require the depth. So I thought it bit off a little bit more than it could chew, and it does halt the progression a little bit, and it does halt your enjoyment to some degree, and that's what prevents it from being a very good film. But overall, if you are a fan of found footage horror films, this one is definitely one to check out. The end is very good, but it's just getting to the end from about the midway point. You feel that it is dragging a little bit, and it's not really going anywhere. So there are unnecessary qualities that do contradict the light-hearted, sort of fun, entertaining feel that the film has. But having said that, it doesn't derail it. And so if you are a fan of this subgenre of horror, then Watching is definitely one I would check out. It's very fun. But if you're not a fan of this sort of stuff, and you like to complain about how similar found footage horror films are, then this movie is not really going to change your mind. So overall, for Watching, I'm going to give it 3 stars. Recommended. A lot of fun. Go out there and see it. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.